Hey everyone, I'm Kayla. This is Dual Diagnosis, a podcast about mental health and addiction. Today I want to jump right in and talk about something a little bit different. I want to go over some of the things that this life has taught me so far in hopes to help someone out with what they're going through or just give a little bit of advice to show some clarity about some topics. So, the first thing I want to go over is number one, don't focus on the negative. This one's big for me because I've spent so much of my life depressed, years. I was just down in the dumps. Everything was horrible and I didn't want to be alive, and I was so just out of it that I was using an active addiction, and I was so depressed even before I got on antidepressants, but even after, for years after, going in and out, trying to find the right combination of medications. I was just depressed, and I spent too much time depressed until I think recently I've gotten on the right combination of medications and my environment has changed and I'm sober now and I feel a lot better. And I think that even though sometimes I do still get depressed at times, I try not to focus on the negative, because I know that when I focus on the negative that I could spiral and go downhill, and if one thing's negative, the next thing is, and the next, and then everything's negative and I'm in a pit. I can't focus on the negative, so I try to do things to bring myself back to a positive mindset, like journaling, or mainly a gratitude journal, because it's hard to be upset or anxious or negative when you're talking about or writing about what you're grateful for. So really just don't focus on the negative. Try to be positive. Try to have a positive mindset. My kind of mindset that I try to go about in this life right now is that everything happens for a reason, good or bad. If I get stuck in traffic on my way to go to an appointment or something and I'm going to be late, well, maybe if I would have been that 5 minutes sooner, maybe there would have been a crash or something that I kind of, by being stuck in traffic and held back a little bit, that I missed. Kind of have that optimistic mindset on things, and somebody cuts you off in traffic or says something rude, maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe, somebody they love is in the hospital and they're trying to get there fast, or, just kind of be mindful. That's a good word. So being mindful and being grateful really helped me to stay out of a negative mindset. The next one, number 2, let the ones you love know that you love them, because tomorrow is never promised. I've been through some things where I have gotten into arguments and fights with loved ones and told them some hurtful things and even said that I hated them, and then that was the last time that I ever got to speak to them before they passed away, and that hits me really hard. It's something I'm still trying to cope with, and I just want to make it very clear and be adamant that if you love somebody and you really care about them, try to just let them know that you love them, and don't leave or depart or anything like that in a negative mindset. If you get into a fight or an argument, clear it up, get through it, talk about it in a respectful, adult kind of way. Because, they say communication is key, and I do believe that in certain aspects, but not only communication, because you can talk all day, but if nobody's listening, then it's really ineffective. You have to be able to communicate and talk about what you need and want, or how you feel, in a respectful manner, but you also need to be able to listen and be listened to in a attentive manner, to where you and the other person can both engage in the conversation and have an actual successful conversation to get something out of it, instead of just speaking at someone. You can actually have a conversation and communicate and listen to each other and figure out what needs to be done. But like I said, you never know when the last time you're going to talk to somebody is. So one of the things that I've learned, let the people you love know that you love them, because tomorrow is never promised. Number 3 is be nice. You never know what someone else is thinking. And I was going to say that you never know what someone else is going through, which is also true, but it's not only the aspect of somebody may be depressed or suicidal and you walk up and say something hurtful or mean, or you're in a bad mood so you just put that off on them. That could be the tipping point for somebody, but not only that, you don't know if somebody else is in a homicidal mood, if anything. Not everybody's just suicidal or sad. Some people are angry, and maybe they're not out to hurt themselves. Maybe they're out to hurt somebody else, and you don't know, and you don't want to put yourself in danger like that. So just be nice. You never know if you could save someone's life. There's been times in my life where, like I said in the beginning, I was so depressed and so just done. I was suicidal. I didn't want to be here anymore. And, there's been times where someone has come up to me and said something nice, and that's made me have a little bit of hope in humanity, that maybe not everybody is bad, and maybe I can get through this day or this moment. Somebody out there cares. You never know if you could be the reason why somebody lives till tomorrow, and you never know if you could be the right reason why somebody doesn't. And I think your best bet is just to be nice and treat everybody the way you would want to be treated. I know that's cliche, but it is what it is. And if you don't want to be treated good, well, suit yourself. But this is really when empathy and compassion come into play. Be mindful. Like I said before, mindfulness is a big thing in this life, and that's one of the things that I've learned is being mindful helps in a lot of different situations. Not only in helping yourself regulate your emotions and, get through your life, but also projecting that good energy and that love onto somebody else, helping them get through their days. So, like I said, just be nice. You never know what somebody else is thinking or what they're going through, and you could really help or you could really destroy somebody. And I guess ultimately that's up to you on what you want to do, but I choose to be nice. Number 4, trust and respect should be earned. Not everybody is your friend, and I've been backstabbed and lied to plenty of times. And I've learned that some of the people that look you in the face and tell you that they love you every day and that they'll always be there for you aren't. And they can turn their back on you in a split second. And I know that some of the people that you just met, that something happens and you guys are together, you don't even know each other's names, they can have your back in ways that, even family couldn't. So trust and respect is earned. Like I said, not everybody is your friend. Not everybody is as real and as honest as you are. I've had, like I said, I say it in quotes, family who told me they loved me, told me that they were there for me. And then when something really bad happened, or just nothing even really bad, just when something went down that was out of maybe their belief system or out of their comfort zone, they turned their back on me in an instant, and it just went all downhill, and I was alone. When I was asking the people that I love, and I thought they loved me, I was asking them for help, and they turned their backs on me. And I loved and respected them, and I thought, because we're family, that was, something that was a given. But now that I look back on the situation, that was never something that they earned from me. They never showed me that I should have respected them or trusted them. I just assumed that I should because, that label of family or that label of friends or whatever it may be. You think they come hand in hand and they don't. Somebody can say that they're your friend or that they're family and still treat you like crap and still, turn their back on you and do whatever and just disrespect you and just put you down. So trust and respect are earned. And just because somebody has a label of brother, sister, mom, dad, friend, cousin, whatever, doesn't mean that you can trust them, and it doesn't mean you should or you have to respect them. That's a big one. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. But once you realize it and you come to terms with it, it's a lot easier to understand. Number 5, most people are assholes, but that doesn't mean that I have to be one. Don't be bitter. That's one thing that I've learned. People, like I said before in one of the last ones that we talked about today, are going through this life just the same way that you're going through it. There's ups and downs. There's situations that happen that are unexpected. There's things that happen that are bad. There's things that happen that are good. There's just there's whatever going throughout your day. But just because you're going through your day, maybe you're at work or something and somebody comes up and they're just rude. They have this nasty look on their face. They're just being mean because they're bitter. I have that choice. And that's, again, I think that's a big concept of this podcast today, is that being mindful is a big thing, because I can choose to give that energy back, and I could choose to be bitter back and be rude and, show them the same energy back, or I could just, not let it bug me. I could say, you know what? Be mindful. Maybe they're going through something. That's okay. Just because they're like that doesn't mean I have to be like that. I'm not going to let how they feel and the vibe that they're giving off control the way I feel. Because I'm in control of how I feel, and nobody else can change that but me. And you may think, well, the way they feel or the way they act towards me does trigger me and it makes me act that way. No, it's not making you act that way. You choose to act that way. Because in that moment, you have a choice. I can either sit here, absorb what they say, do, sound, look, rudely or whatever it may be. And then you have a choice. You have an internal choice. I can do it back, or I can accept it and move on. You don't have to be reactive, and you don't have to be rude. Just be you, and just be, relaxed. Next one, health is important. I think that's a big one for me in this year, 2025. I've been working on my health a lot. I've been getting the medications that I need put in order and taking them regularly, whether that's my mental medications or my medical medications. I've been working on my physical health, and it's been such a difference. The way I feel just by going for walks every day and going to the gym is so different than how I used to feel. Health in all aspects is important: medical, mental, physical, emotional. My emotional health is important to me, and the way I control that is by being mindful and by not letting other people control how I feel. Because, like I said before, nobody can control that but you. You have a choice, and you have to make it, and that's where mindful comes in, because you have to be mindful that you have a choice and not just be reactive. Whether it be medical, physical, or mental, your emotional health is just as important. You need to protect yourself and your soul. You need to protect how you feel. Be aware of who you're around and who you're giving your energy to and whose energy you're soaking up, because it can be toxic and it can be really detrimental on your emotional and mental health, and that can go downhill, and it can affect your physical health and your medical health, getting anxiety or depression from certain things. You aren't mentally or emotionally well enough to upkeep, and it is scientifically proven that mental health and emotional health is related to medical health. When you're depressed, or you have certain mental issues, or you don't take care of your emotions or your soul, it can contribute to physical health problems. And that's important to keep in mindful. And when you take care of all of that, you just feel better overall. That's something that I've learned recently, and it is really helping me feel good physically, mentally. Number 7, drugs and alcohol aren't the answer. And it took me years to realize this. Like in the beginning, I was saying I was depressed for so long. I was in active addiction, and I was using every day, whether it be weed, psychedelics, Molly, alcohol, meth, whatever it may be, pills, whatever. I was always getting high on something every day, or drunk, and I thought, it's helping, it's numbing the pain. But the day after, I'd wake up even more depressed. Because I got that high and I got that euphoria for that night. I felt good while I was drunk and I was high. And then the come down came, and the next day came, and I felt even worse before, so then I thought I had to do it again to feel better again. And it's a vicious cycle that you go through. But drugs and alcohol aren't the answer, and they're not your friend. I'm 3 years sober from substances, and I'm over 2 months clean from alcohol. I'm very proud of myself, and that's something that I hold true to myself, and that I really define myself as, is clean, sober, a survivor, whatever you want to call it. But, I can say that all day, and I can tell you my story and whatever. It's not like you just wake up one day and boom, over. You're sober. It's hard, and it takes a process. And for me, it took me hitting rock bottom, which is a whole story that I can get into another time. But I really hit rock bottom, and some things happened, and it just messed me up, and I was done. And I learned through that drugs and alcohol aren't the answer. And I'm glad that I learned that, because I feel so much better because of it. There's times where I want to drink or whatever, but, I convinced myself, and I realized that, I may feel good in the moment, but it's going to end and it's going to be shit after, and I don't want to deal with that. It's not worth it. Alright, the last one I have is really big with me, and I've just learned this recently, and I just want you to realize, like I realized recently, that whether you deny it or not, that God is with you. And I want to tell you straight up right now, if you don't believe, that's okay. I didn't believe it. I realized that I've always felt it, though. I would be in my depressed stage and sitting in my room and crying, or, just sitting there numb, staring at the wall and being so depressed and suicidal, and I would feel it. I wouldn't know what it was until recently I figured it out. And I always thought, God's not real. If he is, why would he let us go through this, that, and this, all the negative things you think, and all the, things of denial that you go through when you're trying to not believe in God, I guess. But I always felt something, and I didn't know what it was. I don't know what you want to call it, whether you call it God, a spirit, ancestors. Something was always with me, and something was always reassuring me and letting me know that it's okay, like, you can get through this. You don't have to be like this, we'll get through this. It'll be okay. Don't give up, kind of thing. Like a pat on the back. It always felt it. It was always in my heart, and I always thought it in the back of my head, and I always just felt it physically, mentally, emotionally. I felt it. But I didn't know what it was, and recently, it just clicked. God was with me. And those dark times in my life, he walked me through them. Even when I was in denial, even when I pushed him away and said he wasn't real, and I didn't like him if he was real, and he's messed with me so bad that he's let me go through these things alone and all this stuff, and he still had me. He still loved me. He still got me through these things, and looking back, I realize now that was God. He had me, he had my soul, and he never gave up on me. And that's important to me. And I think that'll be important for you too when you realize it. If you're not ready, that's okay. And if you never come around to it, that's okay, because like I said, I didn't for a long time, and he still loved me, and he was still there for me. You may not even feel it like I did. And I didn't know I felt it at the time. But it was always there. I think I was just in denial. But that's all I have for today. I hope that this could give some insight to somebody and maybe help a little bit about things that you're going through in your life, or things that you haven't learned that you want to know, or things that you have learned and that you just want to relate to. Thank you so much for listening. I hope y'all have an amazing rest of your day or night or whatever it may be. Take care of yourselves and each other. God bless. Peace.